Welcome back to Gov class. This is the last of Gov. Next week we start economics. I did post your assignment for you for criminal law, and today we're going to talk about the right to the accused. This will probably be a two-parter. The first part's a little bit more practical. The other things are your different rights. Hopefully, none of you ever get accused of a crime, but in case you are, hey, remember this in the back of your head. At least if a police stop, you might remember some of these things. So the 4th, 5th, 6th, I include the 8th and the 14th. They all have different, obviously, meanings, but these are all people that have been accused of crimes and what your rights are at that point. And you actually do get more rights if you're accused of a crime to make sure that the government isn't railroading you. So let's take a look at the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment deals with illegal searches and seizures by government. Government officials, mainly the one that's going to interact with you is the police or school. Obviously, that's not going to happen anymore. But government officials, the police, need a search warrant that comes from a court stating there's a legal reason for you and your property to be searched. They have to have actual evidence of a crime in order to get that search. Now, a few years ago, Pennsylvania did make it legal that police did not need one to stop your car at a traffic stop. They don't need warrant on hand, but they do have to have evidence, and that judge is going to ask for that evidence if they actually do stop your car. There's a lot of rules when it comes to stopping your car. Understand, and if you've had criminal justice, you've heard me say this, but police do take advantage of you, especially if you're younger. They're going to push to see how much of your own rights that you know. Don't give away your rights. They're yours. Even if you've not done anything, don't give away your rights. So one of the first things that I tell students is when the police ask if they can search your car, basically say no. You can ask, what are you searching for? What can I help you find? But I would definitely not give them permission. Once you give them permission, you lose your right to the Fourth Amendment, and then anything goes. And unfortunately, especially if you're driving other people around, you never know what they have on them or what they've left in your car. So please, don't give your rights away. Don't make it easier for the police. They know what they can do and what they can't do. And they definitely will bend the rules. They won't break the rules, however. They know better than that. So, but they're definitely going to take advantage of you if you don't know what your rights are. And this goes anything from the local Collegeville police to the Maryland State Troopers that some of you are going to inevitably run into on your way down to Ocean City, Maryland during senior week, or Ocean City, New Jersey, wherever it may be. So please know what your rights are and take advantage of that. So this seems pretty easy, except that there's a lot of exceptions to the Fourth Amendment. If they're arresting you, obviously, you do lose your rights as far as the Fourth Amendment because you're being placed under arrest. It's for the safety of the officer. There's also something called the Terry search. Some of you in your constitutional PowerPoints did Terry versus Ohio. In that case, for an officer's safety, they may, if they're interviewing and talking to you, they may conduct the pat down. You know, the pat down, you see it on TV, they touch you. Basically, that is a search for weapons for their safety. If they were to find other things, they're not necessarily allowed to take those things. So they are searching specifically for a weapon, something that can be used to harm them, knife, a gun, an axe, something that could be used, whatever it may be that you have in your pocket. Other than that, they're not really allowed access to that. But that doesn't mean, again, that they're not going to ask. They're not going to ask what it is, and they're not going to ask to take it. And if it's something illegal and you say, sure, why not? Well, then, again, you've given your right away. So you can't run back and try to hide from that one. If the officer observes a crime, obviously, they can check you. Something called plain view. If it's out in the open, the officer has the right to search it. So one advice I always give to teenagers, if you're getting pulled over, have your ID. You know they want your license, registration, and proof of insurance. So have that accessible, right, easy to you. The easiest is your visor right above you, or if you have a little, the newer cars obviously have little cubbies right there along there. If you leave it in your glove box and you open that glove box and something illegal is in that glove box and you've opened it, you have now made it plain view and the officer has access to it. Same with the center console if you open it up in front of them. Now, if you try to hide something while the officer's behind you and he sees you moving around, he actually does have access to search that area when he comes up because he has observed you. Again, not necessarily a crime, but he's observed you maybe shuffling around, and again, he can check for danger. Open fields, while it is private property, open field is generally accepted by the public as open. I know there are some places around Collegeville where students like to party, and it's in an open field, and officers can actually observe that. That's perfectly legal. The big one for you guys going forward is, of course, exigent circumstances, or that's immediate danger. If you were ever to call the police to come to your house or come to a frat party or come to your campus, whatever it may be, the police want to know why that person was in a dangerous situation, in which case they're going to check it out. They're going to check out the situation, and you're liable for anything that they find. So understand that. That's where Penn State part of gotten in trouble with their frat parties, and that's why Penn State's being cracked down on that, and a lot of college campuses are as well because of the alcohol. So understand that police are there for your safety and for the safety of others. They're trying to figure out how that person became unconscious or whatever happened to them, and so they're legally allowed to search in exigent circumstances. Obviously, we talked about the motor vehicle exception, and again, they are allowed access to motor vehicle with they can't just go in and search your car. They do have to have a probable cause to search your car, but there are some there are some rules and guidelines they have to follow, but they do have some leeway there, again, because of their safety. So again, don't be afraid to ask, what are you looking for? What can I help you find? Don't ask, what are you accusing me of? Because then you're going to sound suspicious, and then they're going to want to know a little bit more. I've had students tell me, Mr. Smith, they've wanted to look at my purse. Well, they can look at the top of your purse, but they're not entitled to ask you to move stuff around. Same with your backpack. You don't have to open that up. Same with your trunk. I've had them ask students, hey, what's in your trunk? That's one popular one for senior week. They want to know if you're bringing alcohol down there. You're transporting alcohol. That's a big no-no, especially if you're underage. So, again, why do you want to search? And then the last one's the Border Patrol exception. And remember, we always think of Border Patrol as the wall, or just passing through the border. There's actually a lot of mail, obviously going through customs at the airport. There's multiple ways that the Border Patrol shows up, and they have access to anything. They really do not need warrants to search because of the safety of the country. Agriculturally, they don't want bugs and such coming in. Obviously, drugs, counterfeit. There's a ton of stuff that tries to get smuggled into the United States. There's a great Netflix show about it if you ever want to watch it. But the Border Patrol actually pretty much has carte blanche to do what they want, check what they want, and check you out, whatever they want to do. So there's a lot of exception for the Border Patrol and the airport security and all that to pretty much check you thoroughly for the safety of the country. A good example of this, many of you know this case already, is called Mapp versus Ohio. In this case, a lady, they tried to go into her house. The police gave her false pretenses, and ultimately they found illegal stuff. And what the Supreme Court said is that you cannot use false pretenses to actually obtain evidence. They know it is from the poison tree, so if you ever hear that term, that means that the police have illegally obtained evidence, and from that they've illegally obtained more evidence. And all of that would actually be thrown out in court. And if you believe that the officers have searched your house or your car or something illegally, then please know that make sure you let your attorney know that, and that is then up to your attorney to figure out if the police had obtained a proper search warrant. The other big case that goes along with the Fourth Amendment is Katz versus U.S. And in this case, this was a guy who was calling over the phone, making illegal gambling wagers, which is actually a federal crime because he was calling across state lines. And in this case, the FBI decided to wiretap the phone because it was a public payphone. And the court said, while it was a public payphone, conversations tend to be private. Now, why do I bring this up today? Because cell phones are, obviously much more prominent than payphones today. But if you make your conversation public, whether you're texting, it's out in the open, or whether you're sending pictures and it shows up with somebody else, you've got to be very guarded about that, because now you've taken your private conversation that was meant for two people, but because you're texting or you've made your phone out in the open, you may not be protected as far as that private conversation. So you have to be very, very careful. Also, keep in mind that your cell phone, as of right now, is part of your property. And if an officer wants to search your phone, again, the question is, what are you looking for? They do not have just immediate access to your phone. Again, they have to have probable cause to be in your phone, and they have to know specifically what they're looking for. So I'm going to conclude this part. Part 2 will cover the 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments and 14th briefly, and we'll give you an overview of those.